I'm Kath, and this is the Mindful Melbourne Maker Knitting Podcast. This is my channel where I share all about all the things that I've been knitting and crocheting, and generally have longer podcast episodes about once a month where I share all of my finished objects and works in progress with you. You will find me on Instagram as Mindful Melbourne Maker and on Ravelry as kathsmartin. I also have knitting patterns on Ravelry available to purchase. They're under kathsmartin Designs. Now I say usually I have episodes because this video is actually the second in my series for the Westknits Mystery Knit Along, or MCAL season. So this is Clue 2 or Clue 2 wrap up of the Go Dynamo shawl and where we're up to. Now I did say last week that for each of the 4 weeks I would put out a video showing where I got to with that week's clue, but also doing a little bit of a retrospective. So for each week I'll show you one of my previous Mystery Knit Along shawls from Stephen West or Westknits, and just give you some of the details about those shawls, just to sort of have a bit of a look back at what I did in those previous shawls. So welcome today. Today is Thursday the 17th, and so Clue 3 is due to come out tonight Australian time, and so this is going to be looking back on Clue 2 and where I got to with Clue 2. But first I wanted to jump into my absolute favourite MCAL Mystery Knit Along shawl that I've knit of Stephen West's, and that is Shawlography. So let's have a look at my Shawlography shawl. So this is my Shawlography, and it is a beauty. This is my absolute favourite one of his Mystery Knit Along shawls that I've knit. And that's it there. And as I've said in the previous video, my intention is to eventually, I'd like to go back and knit them all. That will obviously take a very long time, but I've started. So I mentioned last week, my very first Mystery Knit Along shawl was the Twists and Turns, which was 2022. The Shawlography was actually the 2021 shawl, so I did not knit this during the MCAL, so I wasn't under the time pressure. I knew what the shawl looked like before I started, so that did help with things like my colour choice and things like that. So the yarn that I used in this shawl is absolutely beautiful. It's one of my absolute favourite yarns to use, and the colour selection just turned out really beautifully. I love blues, so the palette is very me, but it doesn't have a lot of the really bright colours, bright pinks and things in my usual shawl selection. But I really wanted to go with something that was a little more cohesive in terms of those blues, and then just had a pop of colour. So this yarn is from Fibresmith, which is the local yarn shop to me. Leslie hand dyes yarn and sells it, and sells a lot of other fabrics and things for sewing, as well as things for knitting. But this is the watercolour sock base that she sells, and it's really beautiful. It's lovely to work with. The colour range that Leslie dyes is beautiful and really fitting, and turned out really well in this shawl. So the colours that I've got in here, my colour A, which is my pop, is this green colour here. So this green colour here, this colour is Wasabi, so that's a great colour. The dark navy colour is called Full Dark. The light blue, where's the best place to see that? So maybe in the light blue there, that colour there, is Blue Juniper, and that is my all-time favourite colour that Leslie dyes. It's a really lovely kind of worn denim colour, and just knits up with beautiful depth and variegation. And then there's a mid-tone blue. So this one here, this one's called Aegean. So that color there is Aegean. And then that, it's kind of a white, but it's actually sort of a white grey. It's got sort of grey flecks. It's a bit tonal. That one is called Wind. So those were the 5 colors I used, and I knitted up Shawlography in a very relaxed way in 2023. So I cast this on the 24th of August 2023, and I actually finished it and bound off on the 5th of October 2023. And if you know when MCAL season is, you'll know that that was just in time, days before the Geo Gradient shawl from last year, that knit along started. So I absolutely finished this one in the nick of time to then start the next MCAL last year. But it was good to have a bit of pressure to help finish off this magnificent border, because that really could have taken quite a long time, but the time pressure really drove me along to finish that border. Now, why is this my absolute favorite shawl? Because the colors are beautiful. The shape is very, very wearable. So I wear this one a lot. It goes with a lot of things. So maybe that says something about the color choice in this one. I should probably think about that. But also I absolutely loved knitting it. I'm a process knitter, and so I really like to enjoy the process. I like to learn things. I liked it to be exciting and new. And I like to discover new things along the way. So as you can see, this shawl, every sort of section is something different, and there's lots of sort of known things in here, like garter stripes and stockinette and reverse stockinette striping, but there's also some really, really strange and new techniques like these shrimps, or the little I-cord bumps, and then there's lots of slip stitch detail that's really, really interesting, and there's little bobbles, and then this applied border, and there's little bit of brioche. The whole thing was just really, really fun, really interesting. I learnt a lot, and just when you got bored of one technique, it changed to the next technique, so it was really fun. So I knit this up learning from the previous year where my shawl was a little bit smaller. I actually knit this up with a needle one size bigger than the recommended. So I think the recommended was 3.5 millimeter, and I used 3.75, which I think is a US 5, I think. So yeah, so I went up a needle size, and the size is absolutely perfect. It wears really well. It's really drapey and lovely, and it's my absolute favorite. So that is Shawlography. Now, because I knit this outside the usual confines of the Mystery Knit Along time frame, I didn't pick a theme per se. I just picked a color palette that I really like. I tend to follow a theme when I'm actually in the MCAL, because it keeps me motivated, it keeps it interesting, and it gives me something to focus on and love about the shawl, even though I don't know what I'm actually knitting. So with this one, I knew what I was knitting, so I knew I'd love it, and I knew that it would be great, so I didn't go with a theme. But yeah, but that's my Shawlography. So all the details for this project I'll link below. There's I've got a project page for all my projects, and all of the details for this shawl are in there. So that was my Shawlography, my favorite MCAL shawl from Westknits. And so then let's go to Go Dynamo. So this year's Mystery Knit Along is called Go Dynamo. I still don't necessarily understand the name, but I guess it will become apparent as we knit the shawl. But I'm holding it in this crystal Cat Stitchery corduroy bag, perfect size. It's really lovely. And I finished Clue 2. So Clue 2 came out, I knit it. There's a lot of knitting in this shawl, and it is to the point where my hands were getting a little bit sore and a little bit tired, but I did finish up this clue on Tuesday night, so it just gave me yesterday to sort of rest and relax. I did some crocheting, just did a few other things just to give my hands a bit of a rest, ready for tonight when the new clue comes out. So you'll recall from last week, so my colours, just as a reminder, I'm using Hodgepodge Skeins. Those are the two colours there. Got Tealriffic and white gold, which is there. So those are the two colours. And this is what it is looking like now. So it's very, very long. Very long and narrow. There's more than 400 stitches on the needles now. And it's an unusual start to a shawl in terms of the shape. It's not starting really small and expanding out. It's actually starting very long. Not quite sure what's happening with the shape here. But you'll recall from last time that clue 2 took us up to this point here, which I've got the little dinosaur stitch marker from Mavis Handmade in there. And so that's where clue 2 took us up to, that first row of bubbles there. And so what I did after, when the clue 2 clue came out, first thing I did was wove in all my ends from clue 1, because there was a lot of stopping and starting in that first clue with all the little semicircles, which we knit individually, and then we knit all these garter sections individually. So there was a lot of ends, so I wove all of those in, so it wasn't going to be something that I had to come back to later, and that made me feel a lot better about going on with clue 2. So then clue 2, I did skip ahead in the clue to see what the end of the clue looked like, because I really wanted to see where I might be able to include my special silver thread, which I'll show you in a moment. And it showed that what we had coming up was 2 more bubble rows, and those rows were split up by some brioche, or he always gives an option for those that don't want to delve into the brioche land, eyelet rows, or you could just do garter rows as well if you wanted. And so we have a really great chat group, which I've mentioned before, and if you're knitting along to the MCAL and you're not in a chat group and you want to join one, just send me a message on Instagram and I can add you to that chat group, because it's a lot of fun. And the best thing about the chat group is that when the clue comes out, there's a lot of chatter about what the different options are, what people are doing in terms of their mohair, or maybe their choice between brioche and eyelets and garter and that kind of thing. And so there's lots of people that dive straight in and knit really quickly, and we can all see how things look. And then there's other people that are taking their time to kind of think through placement of things and choices, and there's a real mix of people in there, and it gives all of us a chance to see what we're all doing, how things are looking. And so what I chose to do was I started with the brioche section, which was what that was sort of the first part of clue 2, was knit this brioche section after the bubbles, and at that point you could knit eyelets if you wanted to, and you could also include your mohair dare as the contrast colour in the brioche. So I knit the brioche with my 2 yarns. I don't have a mohair that I'm including in this because I want it to be more flat and less fluffy, but I am including a silver thread in it throughout, and I'm considering gold thread as well to give it that sort of elven look that goes with my Rings of Power theme, which I spoke about last week. So my theme is Rings of Power. I don't think the mohair would sort of go with that theme, the fluffiness. So I don't think would reflect that really sleek elven look that I'm going for. So I just stuck with the brioche with the 2 colours, and that's the brioche section there. And it came out really, really well. I've just kept with the main colour being the one that for the 2 colour brioche kind of pops out more, because that's the teal colour that I really want to highlight. And I just did that with my 2 colours that I'm holding already, so the teal and the white gold colour. And then I did the second row of bubbles, which you'll see there. And I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but I have in each of these bubble rows, I have held with that contrast colour, I've held the silver thread. So this is the Kreme Key Soul Wool Stellaris, and this is the silver colorway of that thread. And so I'm holding that together with the contrast colour for all of those bubble rows. So in person, those bubble rows are quite silvery and sparkly. Doesn't come up as well on the camera, but that's for each of those bubble rows, it just gives a bit of a metallic pop, which I really like. And then I did that brioche section, I did the second row of bubbles, and then there was a lot of conversation in the group chat around the eyelets and how pretty and striking they were, and some people were going to do one or the other. And then one of the members of the group, I think it was Nicole, hi Nicole if you're watching, said that she was considering doing one of each, and I thought that was an absolute perfect option because it kind of went back to my Shawlography in that there's a lot of different textures and styles and stitch patterns throughout Shawlography, which I really enjoyed. I liked that it wasn't always repeating the same thing, and I really liked the idea of including both options and highlighting that in the shawl. So that's what I did. So in this area, this would be where if you were doing all brioche, there would be another row, another sort of section of brioche there. But instead, I chose to do, in that section, I chose to do the eyelets, which I think turned out really nicely. So that's the eyelets there. And so they're just sort of yarn overs and knit two togethers. It's very simple, but just looks really striking. And then the last part of clue 2 was this row of the bubble stitches. So 3 rows of bubble stitches, all with that silvery thread, which I don't know whether it's showing up, but it's in there. So that was it, I say, because it seems quite simple and straightforward, and it wasn't particularly tricky for me because I've done quite a bit of brioche lately, and so I felt really comfortable with that brioche. There wasn't any increases or decreases, so it was fairly straightforward, and his videos are great. They show every stitch, every step of the way, so it's really easy if you haven't come across brioche, and there's plenty of people in the chat for whom brioche was new, and all of their examples look great. They've done such a great job, and so we've all ticked the brioche box and done really well. And so when I say that's all, it looks relatively small in terms of a section, but there's over 400 stitches on the needles already in clue 2, and so this whole section was a lot of stitches on every row, much more akin to a kind of clue 3 or 4 stitch count, which just means that even though it looks like it wasn't too much, it was actually a lot of knitting, a lot of knitting, and my poor hand is suffering as a result now, but that's okay. That's sort of where we landed. So that's my progress on clue 2, and so I'm looking forward to clue 3 coming out tonight. And really looking forward to seeing where the shape takes us, because it's a very interesting shape. Now I did want to share something with you. Let me just grab it. So something else about the group that's really great is that I'm not necessarily someone that engages a great deal with the Ravelry threads for the MCAL, for the knit along, but there's a lot of threads, there's a lot of people across the world that all engage in conversation and chatter. They share their pics, they share their experiences in those threads. I find them a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of people in there, there's a lot of information, so I tend not to trawl through them too much. But some people in the chat have engaged in those chat threads and have found some really interesting information, and this was something that was in one of the Ravelry chats about this MCAL that I thought I'd share because I found it really interesting. So someone who obviously has a statistical mindset and an aptitude for data has counted stitches in this MCAL and also previous MCALs just to compare and contrast. So I thought it was really interesting to share. So this is a post from Freya D-Knot on Ravelry in one of the Ravelry chat threads for the MCAL. And if you're looking for it, it's post 280. And it just gives some really interesting general MCAL stats. So the first one is that the average MCAL shawl is exactly 80,000 stitches, although some years had options for slightly bigger or smaller shawls. So well done to all of us who have finished multiple shawls. That is an insane number of stitches, so well done to us. The average number of stitches a day to keep up, so if you want to finish each clue by the time the next clue comes out, the number of stitches you need to knit every single day to keep up is 2,857. But we all know Stephen's excellent attitude to just embrace your own pace and don't worry about keeping up because it's not a race, so that's important. The average number of stitches in a clue is exactly 20,000. So that's pretty interesting that even though some of the clues seem bigger or smaller than others, that actually on average they're all round about 20,000 stitches. The biggest clue ever was in 2019 in the Starflake shawl, which is a shawl that I've previously knit and I'll show in a future video. That was clue 2. That was the biggest clue ever. That clue had 33,348 stitches. So I did not knit that during the MCAL, but my heart goes out to all of the people that did and that kept up, because that is a lot of stitches to knit in 1 week, so well done. And the smallest clue was in 2022 in the Twists and Turns shawl, which was the shawl I showed last week, and that was clue 3 at a dainty 11,024. And I think that was, honestly, having knit that during the MCAL, probably Stephen just throwing us a bone after that horrendous clue 1 that sent us all into a tailspin. So I just thought that was really interesting. If you have a statistical mind for these kinds of things, it was just a really interesting way to compare shawls. So I'd be interested to see how many the stitches our next 2 clues have and how they compare, because those first 2 clues did seem rather big and my hand is telling me that they were. So yeah, so that's where I'm up to in clue 2 for my Go Dynamo shawl for this year's MCAL. The last thing I just wanted to mention was that yesterday I released my latest sock pattern, the Darwin socks, which is these socks here. So I released this pattern on Ravelry. It's gone live and lots of people have jumped on and bought it and sent me lots of lovely messages, and I really appreciate all the love and all the support. So these are the Darwin socks. They've got a fun little I've called it a stranded stitch heel flap. They've got options for Dutch heel turn and French heel turn, and there's also options for a plain toe or a slipped stitch toe as well, which is a lot of fun. And then the leg and the foot have this really fun eyelet detail that just makes knitting it go a million miles an hour, because you just want to get to the next row of eyelets, which is very simple, very memorizable, and there's lots of information in the pattern to help you out with those socks. So that sock pattern is now out, the Darwin socks. I'd really be grateful if you'd head over to Ravelry and check it out. Even if you don't want to buy it, just give it a like, add it to your favorites, just to, you know, give it some love. And if you do want to buy it, there is a code for a 10% discount through to midnight next Wednesday, the 23rd of October. And if you type in the code HOT SOCKS, all one word, you'll get 10% off the pattern. So head over and check out the Darwin socks pattern. I'd really appreciate it. And that's all from me for this week. So I hope you're enjoying either knitting along in the MCAL or just living vicariously through other people and seeing what they're knitting. And I hope you're enjoying the things that you're making, and I'll see you next week. Bye.